Welcome back, guys. This is the Sideboard podcast checking in. We have myself, Caleb Williamson, and our other host, Timothy Clunt.
How's it going?
Going pretty good. Pretty good. How's your week been, Tim?
Well, pretty tiring.
Yeah, I feel you there.
Helped host and commentate a tournament over the weekend, which we're going to talk a little bit about this episode, but that got dragged on quite a bit because I got memed on super hard by one of the tables in the final round.
That, I want to hear more about this, but we'll talk about it a little bit later.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so, all right, guys. Well, we have a pretty busy schedule for tonight's cast. Let's just dig right into it. Our first topic is, as you all know, we're coming up on set 11, and so we are talking about what I call box buying strategy and just kind of our general take on how many boxes is right, and, you know, should you buy singles or boxes or a case even, and just kind of what is the best choice for your everyday gamer versus like a competitive gamer, and kind of what the differences are there. And then we'll go over a little bit what we are going to do for our specific needs. So, Tim, what do you think about when you're going to buy boxes for like set 11 or even just any set in general? What are some of the factors you put towards your decision?
So with this game, I feel a little bit different than I did when I played Magic. With Magic, I was a huge advocate for buying singles, and then I'd always buy like one box just because opening packs is fun. But with this game, I tend to buy two boxes and then like anywhere between 2 and 4 pre-release kits.
Yeah, because I mean, specifically between Magic and this game, our boxes are what, $65-$75, and Magic's are like $100-$120
now. Yeah, but I mean, since we have so many different like rarities of cards in sets, also like more than Magic, it makes I don't know, it feels like the ratios for each rarity are a little bit worse because we have more rarities to open from. But typically with like 3-ish boxes, I feel like you can get definitely a playset of commons and uncommons and maybe a playset of rares.
With, you said 2 boxes?
With normally like 3-ish, maybe
3,
4.
yeah. Yeah, they've been upping the amount of SRs and rares per set. So I would say like with 3 boxes, you're almost safe for rares. You probably get duplicates that you can trade for the ones you're missing or whatever.
Yeah, but you should be pretty close to a common, uncommon, rare playset with like 3 boxes. Right. 4 boxes, you probably should have a playset of each.
Yeah, or at least see enough stuff to trade.
Yeah.
But then for SRs, I
would just buy singles.
Yeah, just buy singles, because like for set 10, I bought a case and I didn't even get a playset of every SR. If you count SPR and SR, I got a playset of everything. Actually, no, not even that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Some of the like the Shenron Unison, I only got like 2 of.
Yeah.
And so since there's like 24 SRs per set,
I was still missing like 2 copies of probably 3, 4, or 5 SRs.
Yeah, well, in strictly like SR rarity, not SPR, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
And some of the SRs don't even have SPRs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to buy cases and it's not going to put you in like a bind financially and you love opening packs, go for it. And then you can just buy the 10 to 15 cards left you need for the set.
Yeah, I would say like if you're willing to put the effort in to sell your extras, and also like it depends on what your goal is. So like if you're trying to complete the set and get the whole thing, right?
Then just buy a case.
Just buy a case and go from there. But if you're just trying to get whatever's competitive, maybe buy like 2 boxes for trade fodder and then go for singles after that.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of tricky this time around with COVID. I know the West Coast and other parts of America still cannot have play spaces open.
Right.
So a large portion of us are not going to be able to have pre-releases, which means it's harder for us to get pre-release packs, which I usually will buy more of during set release than I do boxes because they have better pull rates.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, usually they do. I mean, they've been pretty broken for me the last like 4 sets.
Yeah. I think they're still technically average, but it just seems like they're better for some reason because like you only get a smaller size. It's just a thing with statistics. Like you get a smaller population size, so that when you hit variance, it just feels better because you're like, oh, I spiked, and so. But yeah, so
I think the last like three sets maybe I've opened a secret out of a pre-release kit.
Yeah,
out of like the 4-ish that I buy.
Yeah, mine are always average.
So I'll have like one absolutely garbage one, like an okay one that's like pretty good, and then I'll have like an ultra busted one.
Yeah. Hopefully people get to do pre-releases. I know in California we probably won't be able to for a while, although I don't know. I really don't know. So, but that's another factor is like, how much do you actually play in a store?
Yeah, and it's different for different parts of the world, and even like in the States here, different states and different areas of the country, some of them are open and have their shops open and able to be played in. Whereas us over here in California, we're still on a pretty strict lockdown.
Yeah. So that's definitely going to influence like how many boxes we buy versus singles and such. Or even like, I know some competitive players don't even buy cards, or they'll buy them just to flip them, but they like buy them and then they flip them, and then when tournament comes around, they just post somewhere, hey, looking for this entire deck, after they've tested it online or whatever.
Yeah. So. And like that's another benefit to being like a high profile player is a lot of the times for big tournaments you can borrow parts or even a whole deck from people because your name is known, you're trusted.
Right.
And so they don't necessarily have to buy everything like the majority of players do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Granted, they still might. But
one of the concepts we had going into 2019 Nats was because we had a Beard as our sponsor at the time, and a lot of like half the team needed cards because the meta was like Shenron Ramp, Broly apes, and then like red decks. That was kind of like the general meta. Mm-hmm. And so people like needed all these cards because the meta was shifting really rapidly at that time.
Yeah, because weren't there like 3 or 4 events in like a month and a half leading up to it?
Yeah, as well as like a set release right in the middle.
Yeah.
And so Nats was like a rush to get product. And so one of our old teammates, Chris, he was like, well, what if a shop owner had like a rent a deck program? And so it's like, you sign like a contract for the value of the deck, and then you rent it for like a down payment, right? And then after the event, you give the deck back or you pay the remainder.
Yeah, I know. I think there's shops that do that for Magic. I know with Magic Online, you can do that. You can rent out a deck. It gives you a value. And then what's cool is you can trade it back in and rent out another deck that's within that same exact value. Yeah. I know it's harder to do with paper, but...
Right, and you have other issues like wear and tear and stuff. But
yeah.
Even that's something to consider when you're buying singles of like, do I borrow for this event? Like what, at the end of the day, what are you going to do with the cards?
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Speaking of buying singles, we have a new sponsorship sort of thing.
Yep, we have a TCG affiliate link. So if you guys haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and check it out.
It'll be linked in the descriptions and our Facebook page and all that good stuff.
Yep. And if you're on the Podbean website, we have it on the left over there with all of our other pages. And yeah, so it's just a TCG affiliate link. You guys are pretty used to these now, but basically how it works, you click the link. There's no additional hassle for you aside from using that link. And anything you buy, we just get a small kickback to help us keep this going and expand and, pay the host fees and that sort of stuff.
Yep. So singles, sealed product, accessories, doesn't matter what game. If you're going to TCGPlayer, use our code, costs you nothing, helps us out a whole bunch.
Yep. Alrighty. So moving on to our next topic, that's going to be what Tim had mentioned earlier, which is the community tournament by the Frieza Army group with Aiden and all those guys.
Yep. So a couple weeks ago, Aiden put up a post in the Frieza Army Facebook group asking when he wanted to do the tournament. It was a celebration tournament for the group hitting 1,000 members. Pretty awesome. Thanks everyone in Frieza Army for, joining the group, being a part of discussions, all of that, and helping out and playing in the tournament for everyone who did. It was awesome.
Yeah. So you got to stream it, right?
Yeah, so I ended up streaming it. Aiden was the host, obviously. So he, myself, and John Connor were the commentators for the event, which really helped having three of us, because John took care of a lot of the standings, results, all of that stuff. Aiden would pop in and out of people's channels to let them know of time in the round and things like that, since I couldn't really jump between different groups since I was the one streaming it.
Right.
So it made it a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, we had a few hiccups the first couple rounds, but
I mean, I haven't been to a competitive tournament or even a casual tournament where there wasn't a hiccup. So
yeah, and it was mostly just start times,
yeah.
Making sure everyone was in with their opponent, so the rounds would start 5 minutes later, something like that.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Yeah, everything ran really, really well. It was a themed tournament, so the guidelines were the leader had to be Frieza's Army or Frieza's clan, with the exception of Trader Dende and one person, Kevin Rooks, got to play Blue Dende because he was playing Frieza Swap.
Okay.
So it was allowed specifically because the entire deck was Frieza, just with a non-Frieza leader. And the community all agreed to that, so.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool.
That deck was pretty spicy.
Yeah, I think he went undefeated, didn't he?
Yes, I think he only had a draw.
Which is, that's pretty...
Yeah, it's still technically undefeated. We had one true undefeated at the end.
Oh, okay.
I think he was playing Golden.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that was a pretty popular deck throughout the tournament. That and Prison.
Yeah, those... I've been playing Prison casually. You come over to my house once in a while, but it's decent. I wouldn't say it's top tier by no means, but it's definitely decent, especially Golden Frieza is actually one of the leaders I've been in the back of my brain toying with, because since set 1 it's always been playable.
Yeah, but especially with it being a tournament with guidelines for it, Prison was a solid choice.
Yeah, definitely,
because basically every other deck has to have some sort of board.
Right, exactly.
So that was a good call. There were a couple other pretty spicy ones. I saw one starter Broly late into the tournament. There were a couple yellow Brolys. That was cool. There was I think just a regular yellow that was playing High to Mastery and all that.
Okay.
And then there was another that was blue, yellow, green. That one was kind of spicy.
That's like a throwback to set 1 Tricolor Ginyu.
Yeah, it was basically green yellow with a blue splash.
Okay, for Bean and stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Did you guys have a good turnout? How many players was it?
I think we had 32.
That's not bad.
I think we had Aiden wanted to cap it so it wasn't too gigantic.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was 32 players. And It was cool, man. We had a lot of people from the community coming into the chat. Got some good traction with the stream. A lot of love being shown.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it was in the title how it's like community Frieza's Army tournament, you know, and it was, you said it was like a celebration thing for hitting 1K members.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, like this game has needed since COVID, has needed stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so just starting stuff like that up is really good for the game because it helps us grow. You know, we're all here to have fun.
Yeah. Hopefully other groups, you know, try to model after that and do like celebration things and things like that to just kind of give players something to do rather than sit around and twiddle their thumbs on Shenron's Lair and stuff like that.
Or even just, you know, put little deck building restrictions like, you know, Frieza.
Yeah, do some sort of like fun tournaments since there's no competitive season, so we might as well have some fun, right?
Yeah, you might as well limit it a little bit and, you know, challenge people's deck building skills and knowledge and such.
Yeah, I think the spiciest decks I saw were both chilled.
That's like a Richard Zapp special.
Yeah, so one of them was skillless chilled.
Yeah. Okay.
Which was kind of busted with like the Vegeta Goku Jr. unison because the chilled tokens are also skillless.
Yeah, tokens are skillless. Even like a bloodlusted card is skillless technically.
Yeah. So that deck was pretty spicy. And then I came across another chilled list, which was it held a special place in my heart. They were playing AOD.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
I don't know how
both of those
that
round, both chilleds were playing against Prison, so
oof.
It was not a good round for either one of them, but the decks were sweet.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get decks like that when you're able to put like little restrictions on how people deck build. You'll get people that are bringing their fun deck, you know, just to come out and play. So
yeah, I mean, I don't remember which one of those two matches it was, but one of them was recycling Live to Fight with the Frost Unison and then slammed the 8-drop SR Frieza on board. So chilled was completely locked out of the game. Can't even swing because you have to play a token.
Yeah.
Which means they have to take 4 life.
That's actually interesting. I don't know if that's because I haven't played that 8-drop Frieza very much, but I don't know if it counts as a cost or not. Because if it counts as a cost, you can choose to just not play the token.
I don't think it's a cost. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's a cost.
Yeah, so it's more like BMS then, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an effect because it says like if they would play it, then they have to. I think it's crit 4 life.
Yeah, it's something ridiculous like that.
So I don't think it's a cost to play the card. It's an effect if they do.
That's still pretty cool though. Pretty spicy.
Yeah, there was some hot stuff in that tournament. Nice. I mean, Kevin's deck was super spicy.
Yeah.
That Blue Dende Frieza swap.
Uh-huh.
It was pretty much like the deck I was playing at your house the other night for fun, but with Blue Dende.
Uh-huh.
It was cool.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
Overdrive is always fun to see slammed on the board.
Yeah, I mean, board wipes are generically good, right?
Yep, and we did get to see him whiff his kill turn and then get milled from 12-0 on 1 attack against Cooler.
Oh, wow.
Because Cooler slammed an overdrive.
That's, yeah, that's like...
Yeah, Kevin, you got wrecked, man.
Josh Valenzuela knows how that feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, though.
We'll very quickly talk about the meme and the probably worst mistake of my life.
Oh, yeah, you were saying you got memed by someone in, like, the final round or something?
Yeah, I don't remember the names of the players, so I'm sorry. But...
Probably better that way.
Yeah, I decided to leave the last round untimed so that we didn't have more ties. And that was the worst mistake I could have made because like an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes into that round, the final table, I don't know how they communicated this to each other, but they decided to meme on me and just not advance the game at all. and that game ended up taking like 3.5 hours. It was funny, super hilarious. The stream was rolling. Both of the guys they weren't like being like jackasses about it or anything. They weren't slow playing. They were just, charge pass, just like absolutely to troll and meme on me. It was funny though. We had a good time with it, but
too bad someone wasn't playing Beerus. They would have just charged past, pay 16, win.
Yeah. So like half of my stream was that one match.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So we all just kind of chilled there, hanging out. Just let them do their thing.
Chilled was chilled.
Yeah, I think it was Golden and Prison, I think. It was definitely Prison. I'm pretty sure the other deck was Golden.
At that point, they just hardcast Smoke Dragon.
So the smoke got booped by a Demigra.
Oh.
Like early on.
Oof.
Yeah. And then, so when the Smoke Dragon hit in game 1, it warped Golden's hand, which had a cell in it. So Golden's secret was gone. And then Golden top decked a Demigra and KO'd the smoke. So now both decks had no secret. But Prison's hand was like 85 cards.
Yeah.
So
that sounds funny, but not too much fun, but funny.
Yeah, it was funny probably for like 30, 45 minutes once we realized what was happening, and then it was just like, please, God, can this end?
End the game.
Just put me out of my misery.
Yep. Well, that's cool, dude. That's actually really good news to hear that the community is doing stuff like that. Just a little bit of encouragement for everyone out there, TOs, and even if you're not a TO, it's super easy to organize an online tournament.
Yep, and if you need help with exposure for it, please feel free to message the Sideboard Podcast Facebook page or myself. Tag one of us, we'll let the other know. Whatever, if, smaller community members or groups want to organize a tournament and want some help with exposure, I have no problem streaming, commentating, helping you guys out, just growing the game and the community a bit more.
Yep. Alrighty. So for our primary topic of the day, we have something that I scrolled through in the community, the primary Dragon Ball Super page. It was a post by someone. I don't remember their name. I don't really like pointing people out anyways, but it was about how they felt that aggro, after like a couple of weeks in a format, phases out and control kind of adapts and just becomes the number one big dog. If you as like a bipartisan thing of aggro and control being the only two types of decks, but I mean, we all know that there's like a bunch of different types of decks, but just generalizing it a little bit. So what do you think about that, Tim?
I'm pretty sure I remember who posted it.
Oh, I don't remember.
Do we want to name drop?
If you want to.
I'm pretty sure it was none other than the mailman himself.
Frank?
Mr. Frank Miller.
Oh, I don't remember, but
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Frank.
Okay, well, it's okay. It doesn't really matter.
He does like to stir up some chaos, so I wouldn't put it past him.
It's okay.
So I know you tagged me in that, and I still felt kind of smooth-brained from that Frieza tournament. So my thought went straight to like TCGs in general, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
And then you replied and you were like, no, like specifically for this game. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's not completely true then. Yeah. I mean, there's some truth to it, but like I explained in my reply back to you, or I think a separate comment on it, this game is designed aggressively. Yeah. So aggro can't really be taken out of a format. Right. So it's always going to have at least like half of the top decks, like completely through a format, unless they release an entire set of control.
Right, yeah. So before we get too far into this, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper, let's just define aggro and control. I'll take aggro if you want to take control. So the sort of like my definition of aggro in any given card game is a deck that is aiming to finish the game by turn 3, and or because OTK kind of, so in this game, kind of fits into this role. Most of the decks can kill you in like 2 turns, like Reboot Gohan, for example. They can kill you in 2 turns, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the first 2 turns.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I would say typically 3 turns, 4 at the absolute latest.
Yeah, so like their primary goal is early game. But
yeah,
it could happen later game. It's just going to be less odds of winning the later the game goes.
Yeah, because then you start getting into the realm of like board wipes, counters, things like that. And aggro decks typically don't have a whole lot of card advantage because everything they draw, they're trying to put on the table.
Right.
So it gets harder to fight that the longer the game goes.
Right.
Which kind of takes us right into control, which is like the exact opposite. Control wants to literally just not die for 4 to 5 turns. That is their plan. Because if they get past that point, they have enough resources with energy in this game, mana and magic, to counter things, kill things, board wipe, etc., and stabilize the game. And control decks usually will play like big, swingy, bomby things that kind of just end the game.
Yeah, which is funny that you mentioned that because I feel like we don't really, outside of SCRs, have very many bombs anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we still do. They just don't really see as much play.
Because they're like super risky.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the only control deck that can afford to play something like that is Hatchiyak.
Yeah.
Because the leader just stops attacks anyways.
Right.
But control decks outside of that, I agree with you. I don't think they can really afford to just windmill slam a big bomb.
Yeah, so kind of shaping the format, if we imagine like from pre-release till, let's say, 2 weeks after release day, the claim was that aggro is prevalent, but then after that it's not very prevalent because control learns how to adapt to whatever the aggro is doing and take over. And so my original stance on this was that I disagreed with it because I felt like the definition of aggro in most games isn't the same as in this game. Because like any deck in this game outside of Hatch and like Prison can be an aggro deck,
Yeah.
You main 4, and actually every color has like a 1-drop combo now where it's, swing, draw, take a life, gain 10 and double.
Yep, and I think even black is getting one with set 11 now.
Yeah, theirs doesn't require life though. It just has plus 10.
It's fine.
It has another condition. I just forgot what it was. But yeah, so like you just like side 4 of those in against, a control deck, and then you're instantly better against them.
Yep.
And a perfect example of that is like playing against 2019 Nats or that kind of format was against Shinron Ramp. That was like the epitome of a like control combo deck, even though it really didn't control that much. It just played defense. But the best card in Nats 2019 was Saiyan Kaba.
Yep.
And, any deck, if you just play some 1-drops, can pretty much be aggro, even if it's not your main primary plan.
Yeah, just double strikes in general murdered Shenron Ramp.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I played it quite a bit, that. And there was the infamous San Diego Regionals where I chose the wrong deck for the open tournament and only played against U6 Kaba the entire weekend.
Right. And and it's just like I think moving into the next sort of thing of like the skill required to play each type of deck, right? I think that they require two different skill sets. Of aggro is kind of like you need to understand sequencing and or not really threat assessment because you don't really play removal that much, but you need to understand sequencing and like I would say like tournament judgment, even though that's required for both decks, but it's an outside of in play skill where if the format is control, maybe you should play aggro, and if the format is aggro, maybe you should play tempo, or so forth.
Yeah, and like you can even break it down further, like basic traditional aggro, or I would call it fair aggro versus like unfair aggro, which would be like AOD.
AOD or even Vegex with U3 was pretty unfair.
Yeah. Those are two totally different types of aggro, although they're still aggro. One is just kind of more combo oriented, so it kind of plays on a different axis.
Right. I feel like there's been a balancing challenge with making aggro like stick in a format because like obviously the top tier competitive players are going to play whatever deck is able to get wins the easiest, because then they don't have to put as much time, because for them time is money.
Yeah, I don't remember who specifically said it a while back, but basically at a large tournament you want to play whatever deck is not playing Dragon Ball the best. And what they meant by that was whatever deck is just playing on like a completely different axis and like world and playing field than everything else, that's what you want to be playing, because they have to answer you.
Right, yeah. Perfect examples of that are Super Shen format, Ape format, but even though that was a little bit more varied, Vegex U3 format, even though we didn't really have any events for that, but like local preparing to play events for that, Storm format, just things like that where it was, okay, this is the deck to beat, but you also need to have a good deck to beat everything else.
Yeah, and sometimes that comes down to just playing that deck and having, like, maybe having your sideboard for the mirror match.
Yeah.
So your main deck beats the rest of the field, and then for mirror matches, it's like a die roll or whatever, or whoever's the better pilot. And then your side deck can just be catered towards the mirror match.
Right. Yeah, so I feel like sometimes people get in this little like hole of playing aggro is like cute, quote unquote, of like, oh, that's cute, like, oh, it's not really competitive, and people just kind of tell them that. But like the other day I got smacked by a red Pilaf deck, like just like turn 2 smacked, and just stuff like that. Even though I still don't think that deck's that competitive, you can win a tournament if you just surprise someone
and you have the right matchups.
Exactly. And so there's a whole bunch of luck involved with Swiss and those sorts of things. And so when you're testing decks and you are like, oh, well, this deck's not good anymore, maybe you don't, toss it and try it against a few other decks that are different. Because if you keep playing the same bad matchup, of course you're going to lose. And if you do win, it could just be because you're lucky.
Yeah. So on that kind of subject, something I personally like to do when I'm going through like testing and stuff, especially before tournaments, is I like to test open-handed, whether it's paper or on untap. You and your opponent both play with everything revealed, and you can go through and talk through the most optimal lines of play.
Right.
Because that helps you learn both your deck and the other deck a lot better.
Yeah. It does. I like playing open-handed too. There was just one thing that like I learned once I played like that like variance is a huge deal. And so playing open-handed is very good to a certain level. And then there becomes like this weird like mind game that you can play once you reach the like master level for a deck. So like I would say that playing open-handed gets you to master level, but then once you're at master level, there's like this mind game you play against your opponent of, my deck's gonna do this thing, and you know it's going to do that thing. So now I have to plan around you knowing what I'm going to do and play something else that's slightly different, but still like my general game plan in order to win.
Yeah. And the important thing, if any of you are going to decide to test like that, is make the play you would normally make and then go back and talk through it once you've decided on the play and made it.
Exactly.
Don't alter what you're going to do just because you can see your opponent's hand, because that's not going to make you better at all.
Right. The whole point of playing open-handed is so that both players can discuss, like, maybe you should do this play or you should be doing this play, and kind of like a teaching moment of if we have two people playing two decks rather than one person playing a deck and one person playing a deck.
Yeah, it kind of helps you to go from like playing checkers to playing chess, which is something, I tell our guys a lot.
Right.
Yeah, it'll definitely help with your skill, being able to read the game state and your opponent a lot better. Something I definitely recommend a lot.
Right. Yeah, so going back to the like aggro phasing out, I think this game just kind of isn't formatted traditionally compared to like Magic and stuff, because
I'd agree with that.
It's like one of the only games where as you're getting closer to losing the game, you are getting more resources because of that. So it rewards you for dying, essentially, except for in the case of Mill, but even then you're still rewarded with like knowledge of what's left in the deck.
Yeah.
And so like this game, you can pivot from like a control plan or an aggro plan quickly into, obviously in a well-constructed deck, you can pivot into the other one pretty quickly based on matchups. Corner cases are, like you were saying before, those decks that play a whole different ball game of like, this is their one plan and they do it so well that they don't need to worry about anything else.
Yeah, like U3 Vegex. I would even say that like that Reboot Gohan AOD list that I was playing, it's not quite on the same level of like what Vegex was doing, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, sitting at like 10, 14, 15 attacks on like turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, and the thing that I really liked about that is when you're going for your Awaken turn, you can choose whether to stay at 3 life, go to 2, or go to 1. And if you know you're not going for a kill turn, you can just Awaken at 3 and not take any life, and then just hold Garlic Juniors as negates.
Yeah.
And you can play a defensive game for 1 or 2 turns and then murder them.
Right. Yeah. And so that's just expounding on what I was saying about, you can transition for a couple turns. I feel like, thinking more about it and talking about it, aggro and control is more of a turn-to-turn basis. Because, like, this game's so...
Yeah, it's kind of just this game in general is like that.
Yeah, like...
You have to read every turn.
Yeah, it's not just, this is my game plan, this is what I'm going to do. Because as soon as you make your game plan linear against a good opponent, they'll just play around it and probably...
Yeah, they'll eat it up.
Yeah, and it was like a perfect example of that was when I was playing against Reboot Hit in a tournament a while back. I was playing Sen Shenron, right? And so... like, I go for my 9-drop turn 2, which was, cake, and they can't really deal with that too easily. I mean, they can by negging it, like, with 2 things, but he didn't answer it. But every time I went to go into a Haze chain, he would just answer it with Yamcha counterplay or something of that type. You know? And so he'd get this board of, like, topos and just other negates, and then he'd start swinging, and it was too much for the 9-drop to handle.
Yeah.
And then eventually he just killed me. But then game 2, I transitioned into not playing Haze ever and focusing on like just Raider's War Cries. And I actually wrote up an article for Joey talking about how you can shift your plan and change it up to combat your bad matchups.
Yep.
And so, just changing things up based on each turn can do a lot in the entire match.
Yep, and that starts with all the way down to your mulligan going into game 2.
Yep, exactly. And mastering your deck, knowing the plays you can do, what you can push. If you're playing Cells, what numbers make 12.
Yep.
And just kind of, playing all the options of your deck.
Absolutely. So I think that kind of wraps up that topic, yeah?
Yeah, so...
All right, so quick reminders for everyone listening. Set 11 coming out. If you guys are planning on buying any singles to buff up some of the older decks that are getting supported, buying sealed product, anything, use our affiliate link. It costs you nothing. It helps support the channel just a little bit. We do have our merch store as well through my Stream Labs account. We've got t-shirts, some baseball tees, sweatshirts, and I think women's tees. More will be coming in the future. They are super comfortable. They came out super nice. Maybe we'll even do a giveaway for a shirt at some point.
Potentially. We'll have to hit like 100 subs or something.
Yeah, we'll think of a goal and definitely do some sort of giveaways. And lastly, help support some of the content creators with their streams and stuff like that. Streaming is a little more difficult to do with this game because we don't have a real client. YouTube's a lot easier, it feels like. So pop into some streams, help support. I know Evan Glover was streaming for his local shop, I think yesterday. We've got my stream as well. And there's Eggman, Marcus, a few other people. So go pop in, give them a follow. If you have a free Prime sub, use it to help support. That costs you nothing. If they have merch, maybe pick up a shirt or something. Just help support the community.
Yep, and that kind of wraps up our episode for today. Just remember, guys, we are 5th in the card games sales. I think they released that announcement a little while ago. AAA always posts it in the main page. So let's try and get into that top 3.
Awesome, absolutely. Let's keep it up, guys.
All right, this is a Sideboard podcast checking out.
See ya.